Your narrative reflects a profound and complex journey through trust, betrayal, and the search for understanding. It begins with an introspective awareness of how confessions often seem distant, as if they belong to others rather than oneself. This was a sentiment I shared until a life-altering moment reshaped my perspective. My experience encapsulates the shifting morals of our times, where loyalty is frequently dismissed as a joke rather than a cherished principle. I embarked on the path of marriage at a young age, just 19, while still in my third year of college. My wife, a year younger, followed the societal expectations of starting a family. We welcomed our son during our first year of marriage, and 8 years later, our daughter completed our family. After finishing my education, I enlisted in the Army, which provided financial stability that allowed my wife to dedicate herself to raising our children rather than pursuing her own career. My service took me away from home for extended periods, both in domestic and international settings. Along the way, I earned commendations, but I also suffered a shrapnel injury that left a lasting mark on my back. At the age of 42, I was honorably discharged and returned to my initial profession at a respected metallurgical firm. In a span of 5 years, I ascended to the role of Deputy General Director and co-owner. Financial worries were never a part of my life, a reality that remains true even now at 60, while my wife is 59. We have enjoyed 41 years of marriage, during which I always trusted my wife implicitly, never once doubting her fidelity. Our children grew into adulthood and followed paths in law enforcement. My son is now a colonel leading a department, while my daughter serves as a warrant officer. Both have families of their own, and we are blessed with grandchildren. From the outside, our lives appear to be fulfilling, or so I believed. I never raised my voice at my wife, nor did I deny her any of her desires. I took joy in showering her with gifts, fueled by genuine love, and our intimate life was never a point of contention. Natasha, my wife, has gracefully aged, enhancing her natural beauty without resorting to cosmetic enhancements. It has always been a delight to have such an attractive partner by my side. For the past 15 years, Natasha has held the position of head of the marketing department at a pharmaceutical company, a role that frequently required her to travel extensively, particularly over the last 5 years. Some of her business trips extended for months, during which she managed the supply of medications to pharmacies, especially in bustling Siberian cities, including the town of Krasmirs. Despite her absences, Natasha consistently reached out to me, expressing her longing for our family and her love for me. Recently, our metallurgical firm secured a contract with partners in Krasmirs to supply welded pipes for an oil pipeline. As Deputy General Director, I was tasked with traveling there to finalize the deal. It was during this trip that everything shifted dramatically. After signing the contract, I was invited to the office of the General Director, where refreshments were laid out for a celebratory gathering. As I glanced around the office, my gaze fell upon several photographs on his desk, one of which left me breathless. A picture of the director with a striking red-haired woman, whom I instantly recognized as my wife, Natasha. The shock rendered me momentarily speechless. Regaining composure, I casually asked about the woman in the photograph. The General Director beamed with pride as he spoke about her, referring to her as his cherished companion of 4 years. He even suggested continuing the celebration at his country estate, promising to introduce me to his partner and singing her praises, albeit noting that she often had to care for her ailing mother, which led to her frequent absences. As his words sunk in, my heart raced, fear gripping my chest, and a dark thought flickered in my mind. Yet, I realized he was oblivious to the truth. Upon arriving at the elegant mansion, the owner welcomed me inside, but I could feel the color draining from my face. I mumbled that I wasn't feeling well. As we entered the dining room, he proudly introduced me to his partner, Natasha. The moment our eyes locked, time seemed to freeze. Natasha's face drained of color, and she began to crumble, her breath hitching as she collapsed. A friend rushed to catch her, and I suddenly understood the peril I posed. Without a word, I turned and fled the mansion, hailing a passing cab and hastily gathering my belongings from the hotel, racing to the airport. It was only on the plane that my mind began to settle into a semblance of calm. With every beat of my heart, one question reverberated through my thoughts. Why would she betray me like this? The details of my return home became a blur, lost in a haze of confusion. I wandered my apartment, consumed by the haunting question, unable to find solace in either sitting or lying down. My legs swelled from restlessness, and my heart, once racing, now felt like it was rumbling ominously, pushing me toward despair. Suddenly, an excruciating pain gripped my chest, and I lost consciousness. It was my driver who discovered me when I failed to appear for my commute. He used a spare key to unlock my apartment, finding me unconscious, and promptly called for an ambulance. Thankfully, medical intervention proved effective, revealing that my heart's irregular rhythm was a result of the emotional strain I had been under. I spent about 3 weeks in a hospital, during which Natasha attempted to reach out to me repeatedly, but I chose to ignore her calls, eventually turning my phone off entirely. Upon my return home, I switched my phone back on only to receive a frantic call from Natasha. She spoke incoherently, begging for forgiveness while trying to shift the blame onto me. The conversation ended with her shouting that she and our children were everything to her, that her love was solely for me, and she implored me to forgive her. I listened in silence, overwhelmed by the weight of her words, before disconnecting the call, unable to endure any more. The reality that my wife had been living a double life for 4 years, a web of lies and deceit, was too much to bear. She had maintained a parallel existence while professing her love for me. Was I simply her backup plan? Our children had been searching for answers, but I felt too afraid and ashamed to reveal the entire truth. Yet I understood it was inevitable. A month later, Natasha returned, still hopeful that she could win my forgiveness. After listening to her for nearly an hour, I called our son and daughter, suggesting that Natasha reveal the truth to them herself. The children sat in silence, listening intently as she attempted to explain her actions, ultimately attributing her betrayal to my failure to give her enough attention and not recognizing her as a woman, which led her to seek love elsewhere. Yet she professed her deep love for us and pleaded for our forgiveness. Our son was the first to respond. "Mother, what you did was cruel to both us and Dad. It's up to him to decide, but I can't forgive you." Our daughter, tears streaming down her face, silently left the room without uttering a word. Natasha recognized the gravity of the situation. Her demeanor shifted, her shoulders slumped, and without looking at me, she departed. I watched from the window as she walked down the stairs and climbed into a waiting taxi, heading back to her lover in Crestmere's. 6 months later, she reappeared, having lost her new husband in a tragic car accident. His children promptly evicted her from their home, leaving her with nowhere to go. She returned to our city, attempting to reach out to me several times, but I refused to engage in any conversation, and our children also ignored her calls. Currently, she resides in her parents' apartment and works at a pharmacy, while my own life continues, with her personal circumstances remaining a mystery to me.